intentions. And my intention this year is to share what we have with as many people as possible. As Dr. Bob, who will be hearing from in a very short period of time, my intention is to give this to more people than ever, to share our products that are infused with something so healthy. And before I hand it over to Eric, there isn't a day goes by when I don't give massive thanks to Dr. Bob, because I met him 11 years ago. And it was through circumstances that I was never planning. My girlfriend, she wasn't my wife at the time. She was diagnosed with a very aggressive brain tumor and not given very long to live. This was her after surgery. And I found a treatment in Houston, Texas. It cost nearly $250,000. That took us on a journey to go there. But I wanted her to see a nutritionist. I wanted her to see someone who understood functional medicine. And you know what? In life, if you're going to see someone, you want to see the best, if you can. And without doubt, Dr. Bob is, to me, the best in his field of functional medicine, nutrition, and in this business, because we have a business as well. He's the best in this business, in my eyes. And what he shared with my wife is what he also shared with me. And a year and a half after meeting Dr. Bob and my wife making a miraculous recovery, we joined Organo. And through joining Organo, I introduced it to people. And many of you are here this evening. One of them is Mr. Eric Higgins. And we just haven't looked back. And I don't think we should be looking back. I really think we should be looking forwards. The more we look forwards, the more we should see the only thing that exists, and that's possibilities, right? So it gives me a great pleasure to hand the baton over to Mr. Eric Higgins, health coach, just an amazing actor and really great friend. I'm so looking forward to 2022, my friend. I'm going to hand it over to you. Let's do this.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Pete. And a pleasure and a privilege, as always. I feel like I'm making a speech on stage. It's an honor and a privilege, but it truly is, to be surrounded by great people. But I won't delay whatsoever. I just want to introduce Dr. Bob really quickly. Apart from, you heard what impact he's played in Pete and Hannah's life. He's certainly been an incredible mentor to myself and my wife, Isa, and a lot of other people around the world as well from afar. And it just shows you the level of caliber of human this man actually is. Not only does he help people like world-class Olympic athletes become their absolute best, he also helps the regular people to come back to health through natural medicine. Has worked with some of the best in the game when it comes to sports. So worked with some of the best doctors in the world to be better doctors through functional medicine. But is here to give us some rock solid strategies to have our best year ever. Some of that will bleed into, pardon the pun, our health. Other areas will bleed into.
Eric, you froze, bud. I don't know if it's me or you. Everybody's frozen. I wonder if I froze. Eric, did I freeze or did you freeze?
You seem to have red bars, so maybe it was you. I'm not sure. Did you have a solid connection on me, guys, in the last minute, or did?
Yes.
Okay, I think you may have dropped, Dr. Bob.
I froze, but I'm back, and that is one of the joys of this newest year. The whole world has gone virtual in some way. So even though we live in a neighborhood with fiber optics that have been installed to increase bandwidth and speed, we still get some interruptions. So, Pete, I always like to throw in on Eric's resume a couple of things: the Irish Superman and married to the Brazilian Wonder Woman. So, those are two things that well, he's the only one that gets to be married to Heloisa, but and I guess the only Irish Superman. But yeah, we want to make sure that we give the shout out to the better half and what he personifies, which is superhuman, just about everything. So what a fun call. What a wonderful way to start. And you mentioned that I would probably share some things, and I'm happy to do that as I just pulled my headset out, which is good. But when we start looking at all the good that we have in the world, there's an absolute ton of it that we can build on. And I like to tell people that, you know what, we want to keep things simple. Einstein said that any intelligent fool can make things bigger and more complex, but it takes genius and a touch of courage to go in the other direction. And I'm thinking that this may be the most succinct and complete life advice philosophy that I've ever read. So 6 words, there has to be 7. So let me add a 7th word, but here it is. Dream big, start small, act now. How's that? We'll throw in another now, because we do need to act now. But, you know, when we start deconstructing this, what does it cost us to dream? Well, absolutely nothing. What does it cost us extra to dream big? Absolutely nothing. What does it cost us to dream small? Maybe everything. Maybe everything. And, you know, so let's expand. Let's realize that, and there's a quote that I'll share when we get into life's areas, but we all have the potential to be partnered with infinite. The offer's made to us. And one of my mentors said, all success includes partnering with infinite. And when you partner with infinite, you cannot get more than your share. So, you know, don't be thinking you're being a hog. You're not. You're doing what you're supposed to do. That's to be your best self. Well, what about start small? Well, you know what? If, you know, I'll go to Lao Tzu, I guess, for that one. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. That's a pretty famous quote. And why don't I then qualify that a little further? And why don't we just make that step in the right direction? But keep in mind, if you go in the wrong direction, at least you're paying attention, you'll pretty soon find out, I'm getting further away from my goal. And if you have a tour guide, like a Pete Cohen, like an Eric Higgins, you know, you're going to get there faster. That's just simply how it works. And what about act now? Well, I might ask you the question, what other time is there? That's it. That's all we have is now, and another now, and another now. And if you build on those nows, you're going to do really, really well. And, you know, you mentioned about health for a moment. I'm going to share that in a moment, but I'm a big fan of quotes. And here's one. If you want to kill a big dream, tell it to a small-minded person. So we have people on this Zoom that have aspirations of being an absolute world champion. But you know what? You tell that to a small-minded person and they might try to let some air out of your balloon. Oh, yeah. What makes you think you're going to be the absolute best in the world, or possibly the best in all time? Don't you know people are going after you? Don't you know that the clock is ticking? Don't you know, don't you know, don't you know, don't you know? Well, what they don't know is who they're talking to. But better yet, just don't talk to that person at all. We don't need anybody around us that lets the wind out of our sails, the air out of our balloons, whatever. Don't rain on anybody's parade. That's a really good rule. And when we talk about health, here's what I like to tell people. Let's go deeper than that. Let's talk about life. We're mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, social, financial, and impactful. And Pete, I loved your intro. You know, where's your mom? Everywhere. And when you ultimately start talking to people that are brilliant, that have looked at this to the deepest level, I'm going to go to Tom Chi, astrophysicist in the middle. And this guy was at MIT when he was a teenager. And ultimately, when he traced everything back to the Big Bang, he said, we all came from the Big Bang, period, end of story. That means we're all connected on some level. We're all brothers and sisters. And if I'm politically correct, or something else that you identify with. So we're all that, we're all connected. And so now, what preceded the Big Bang? Well, that's the magic question, isn't it? But we might say that the essence of understanding that everything is connected, and I'm going to go to the greatest minds in the history of the planet, they'll say that that is spirituality. It is oneness. And think about it. If everybody's your brother and sister, or again, however they identify, and you treated them as such, wouldn't you treat your brother and sister with love? Now, sometimes tough love. You train with Eric, that's going to be tough love. You train with Curtis, that's going to be tough love. You train with Pete, sometimes it's going to be tough love. That's just the way it goes. But tough love is still love by definition. And then we start talking physical, mental, even financial, impactful, social. We could even go emotional, spiritual. I once did a talk on the 7 life areas and how the herb of spiritual potency can get us advancements in all of those. We've got it. And Eric, we have great conversations, but just based on one of our special guests, I wanted to share, actually more than one special guest, but January 1, the number one New Year's resolution in this part of the world is fat loss. So here's a PubMed that talks about 6 different ways that changing your coffee can improve your body composition, lose fat, gain lean, improve your chemistry, the whole bit. And then if we want to talk about elite, Pete, was it 6, 7, I don't know how many world championships before Ulysses said, all right, I dominated. Now I'm going to step away from the sport and just do some consulting. Do you know how many championships he won?
3.
No, more than that. It was 5 when I was in that picture.
I think he won. He won so many, but I think I'll have to double check. But for those of you that don't know, this is Ulysses, who's a natural bodybuilder. He has 8 million followers on Instagram. Yeah, and he loves our coffee.
For the record, he asked me, Bob, would you put your jacket on with the picture? Your shoulders are making me look a little frail. So I said, yeah, Ulysses, I'd do that for you. So you see, humor is one of my goals for 2022. I don't know how well that joke went over, but I at least got a thumbs up from Claudio. But at any rate, right, the best of the best, they can feel a difference fast. And how awesome is that? But Eric, you and I tend to have great conversations. Actually, a lot of us do on that. So you want to have a conversation about any one of those topics or all those topics?
Sure. I think, Pete, chime in on this. And of course, anyone on the call, guys, who wants to do so as well, please go ahead. But I certainly think getting your mindset right to begin with at the start of the year, I think is a great direction, because Pete said something very interesting at the start of the call as well, is the connection you have to your future self, and where is that going? Because all too often people put themselves in the driver's seat of, okay, it's a new year. I must have something new to create and to focus on, rather than what is the thing that we're really building on consistently already. So it's not like you're arriving to the new year feeling that this is January 1st and let's start from scratch. This is something we're constantly building on every day is January 1st, really. Could you just speak to the importance of that as well, Dr. Bob? Every new day being a January 1st. What is it for you, the importance of that and that process? And of course, Pete, chime in as well on this.
Yeah, no, Dr. Bob, I'd like to go first on that one, if that's okay. Thank you so much. I love it. He puts his thumbs up at me. So there is a science of future self. And there's a guy called Hal Hershfield, who's probably the most well-known person in the world for future self science. And he said something so amazing. I'm delighted that Curtis Mitchell is here, because for those of you that don't know Curtis, he's one of the fastest people on the earth. He's an amazing athlete. And I interviewed him, and I don't know how well he remembers what one of the things he said, but what Hal Hershfield said, he says, everything we do is based on our future. Everything. Doesn't matter what happened to you in your past. Everything is based on your future, but our relationship to our future, this is where it gets really interesting. He said that most people are 9 meals away from crime or suicide. And the reason is that people don't have a relationship that is any way, most cases, past a day, a week, a month. And we know this because we've seen this in experiments where you ask people to associate with themselves in a year's time or 5 years' time. They don't. They see that as a stranger, not them. So everything we do is for the future. And what I learned from you, Dr. Bob, many years ago, I just didn't really apply it in the way I apply it now. I know who I'm becoming. I know that person. And it was actually when I did a podcast with Curtis, and, as an athlete, someone who's competed in the Olympic Games and World Championships, you can imagine that great athletes, they know the person that has won. And what Curtis said to me was, he knows with decisions that he makes in the moment, he knows he can see like a telescope, he can see himself in the future. And he knows that his future self is saying yes to the things he's saying yes to, or saying no, and then he'll make a different decision based on the person that he's becoming. We can all do that. We can all do it. It's whether we choose to do it or not. Because if you don't see a compelling future, if you don't see it, you might as well forget setting goals, because you just set goals out of the fact that everyone else is. So, when Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world, he knew exactly who he needed to be, and he was prepared to become that person at any cost. So, Dr. Bob, I'd love to hear what you have to say on that, because, you're a massive advocate of all things personal development. And sorry, Eric as well. Eric's an actor. So if anyone knows anything about that, to become the part that you need to be.
Well, when you start looking at nature as a model, Einstein gave us advice, and he was a pretty sharp character. He says, look, study nature. Nature has the answers. Well, here's the question. What is the universe doing? It is expanding at a phenomenal rate. It is not shrinking. So we're part of the universe, aren't we? What's our destiny? Well, if we honor it, it is to expand. And plenty of motivational speakers have said this. How big will a tree grow? As tall as it can. How big will a goldfish go? Well, as big as it can, but keep in mind, if we put it in a limited environment, it can't grow. And nature teaches us that. Earl Nightingale used to talk about a farmer that put a pumpkin in a glass jar. And what did he do when he broke the jar? He had a pumpkin in the shape of a jar. And they said, how'd that happen? He said, well, I put it in a jar. It grew as far as it could. And that was the limits of the jar. So if you hang with this crowd is going places. Where are our sights? Impacting everybody that we can in a positive way. And how many people would that include? That would include everybody. And you look at the people that have already said, wow, this makes a lot of sense and it could make a lot of dollars. I'm going to do that too. And ultimately, Pete, like you said, I had no idea about that 9 meals. I don't even want to think about that. I'm not even sure I want to know that, except to say, well, it's my duty to add something of value to everybody I interact with, leave them a little better than I found. And we could go at Maya Angelou on that, right? People forget what you say, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. We want to make them feel special. And I see beautiful, wonderful, special, proactive people here getting better by the moment.
Yeah. It was, I don't know how many of you have seen the Oscar-winning speech by Matthew McConaughey when he's talking about who his hero is. He talks about his hero is the person he's chasing. It's him in the future. And I would say the number one prerequisite in success is knowing who you want to be, not what, not even why. I'd say, who is that person? Could you be that person? And the business that we have built, simply which came out of massive adversity. This is how we came across the company Organo through, there you go, CXT, which we don't have here in the UK. Simply was from Dr. Bob sharing this with my wife. And now I've not stopped sharing. And my vision of this is these products are just in millions of people's homes all around the world, simply because we shared. I'd actually would love to know, just in terms of, and I know you've mentioned this before, Eric, and again, we'll kind of just chip in here. And if anyone wants to speak at any time, feel free. This is a kind of a bit more of an open discussion. It's the first day of the year. But can you just tell everybody here a little bit about why these products are just so important, especially with the superfood ingredient? If people really want to have a great, healthy year, what impact can Ganoderma or reishi actually have on people?
Well, Pete, I'm going to go to an off-color story that was profoundly life-changing for an individual that wasn't very proactive, wasn't very consistent, wasn't very compliant, wasn't very healthy. But he had a big why when he came to me. So I had a police officer come to me, about a decade ago. And he came because he was hurt. He had an injury and he wanted me to help him with that. But he said, Dr. Bob, I've got good news, bad news. I said, well, I like the good news first. He says, I met the love of my life. I'm getting married. I said, well, that's fantastic. How can there be any bad news? He says, well, I've got this horrific case of genital herpes. I have such high stress job that I can't get rid of it. He says, I always have a breakout. I'm taking antiviral drugs. Can you help me? Well, I put together an antiviral protocol, which, guess what? Ganoderma is proven against herpes. There's 200 strains of that virus, including Epstein-Barr, associated with chronic fatigue. It blocks replication of HIV. It's proven against the current virus that people are a little bit concerned about, on and on. And, you know, I put him on a protocol with everything I knew to kill the virus. And we did. We killed it. We put this in remission fast. And he stayed on the protocol for a couple months, got married, had a beautiful honeymoon. And like so many patients, and Burke can probably nod his head, yes, problem goes away, so does compliance. Problem goes away, so does compliance. Goal is one, okay, I'm not training anymore, or however that works, right? Curtis will know a lot of athletes. Okay, season's over, I'm taking a break. You know, no, if you're after a bigger goal, you keep going, you keep going, you keep going smart. Well, anyways, he switched his coffee. Now, as a police officer, he was drinking 9 to 10 cups of coffee a day. He loved the coffee. He says, oh my gosh, this is so much better. He never stopped drinking the coffee. So he was in fairly recently, about a decade later, and I said, I got a question for you. You had a problem a decade ago. He says, Dr. Bob, I'm pretty sure I'm cured. I haven't had a breakout since our first visit. Well, can you completely eradicate it? I don't know. We don't need to get into his genes to see if there's any viral DNA there, but here's what we know. He's not having a breakout, and that part of his life has been forever better because he made a better choice in coffee. Now, if I asked you, how many times do I need to remind him to drink his coffee? Never. When does he plan to quit? Never. How often do I get paid? Every time, every time, every time, every time, every time. How often? Every time. Am I okay getting paid 3,600 times a year on that one sample for the rest of this guy's life? I am. Are you okay with that? If you are, this is the right place for you.
I love that, Dr. Bob. Actually, it's ironic. Isa mentioned something to me earlier today, and this apartment we just moved into is, you know, pretty much cleared out, you know, but there was one item that we discovered, or she discovered, and guess what's on it? I just thought this was ironic that we'd see a mushroom on the only towel that was left in the building.
I think that you know, that's also something we should just really highlight. You know, if people are looking for something, let's just be honest again. Let's be totally honest here, right? If people are looking for something, if you're looking for a business, it was Warren Buffett that said, right, what you do should be your hobby. What the world does should be your business. And what the world does is drink coffee. I remember growing up, I just watched this documentary about the Beatles on Disney Plus, 6 hours of watching the Beatles. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable the work that these guys did and the impact that they had. Unbelievable. I didn't see many cups of coffee being drunk. It's all cups of tea because it's Britain, you see. But now it's all about coffee. Children are drinking coffee. Everyone is drinking coffee. People run on coffee. Cars run on petrol, not for much longer. But we all know that coffee would be a great business to come into. But what if you had a competitive advantage because your coffee was infused with something that thousands of years ago, if you were caught with it, you'd be in big trouble. They'd cut your arm off, first offense. Second offense, they'd cut your head off. Dr. Bob, can you tell us a little bit about, or Eric, just about Ganoderma, the mushroom that is in our product? What is it about that? And what is
Eric go first?
Yeah, and the impact of kind of the medicinal mushrooms. How big is that industry going to be? How do you see it, Eric?
Well, you know what, as someone who didn't really know much about it to begin with, you know, I think my first initial response as a human is to be skeptical of something you don't truly understand or have much connection to, because especially when someone says something is a big deal and you haven't heard of it, there is always an incubation period. There's always a time for you to, well, let me learn more about this. And you go and do your due diligence and you put this, if you are an intelligent skeptic, you put your skepticism to the test through practical application of that idea. You don't just get theoretical about it only. You put it to the test, put it in your body, be a curious soul, and let that do its thing. And, you know, for myself, as someone who's always trained at a high level my experience was straight away, I had a very clear connection to my brain that I hadn't experienced before. I felt like I was on some mind enhancing narcotics. If that's what that experience was. I'm not very well rehearsed in that now, to be honest, but I just felt super zoned in and very focused on what I was doing. And my mum had a pain response change in 48 hours, a pretty drastic response to her pain. And my wife, of course, had a challenge with her digestion she had for 10 years that it was above my pay grade to even advise her on, apart from getting a healthier self-image around food. But lo and behold, that had a huge change for her within 3 weeks. So coming from a skeptic point of view, not really understanding much of the science behind it, I then saw some of Dr. Rakowski's work on this, the video, Pete, that you actually made. And this was the second time I watched it. The first time I didn't really take it that serious. I wasn't even sure, was this for real? But, I wasn't so familiar with Dr. Bob. I heard of his name, but I still wasn't there. I needed that practical experience. And then to watch it the second time around, it was like watching the movie for the first time where you go, So that was my experience. And I know, Dr. Bob, you're going to give us a lot of the data on that, as to why this is so powerful, why it's been in Chinese culture, why you can go into a random home and see a picture of a medicinal mushroom on a tea towel, because these have been treasured or been revered in culture in Asia for thousands and thousands of years. So I'd love for you just to expand a little bit on that, Dr. Bob, as to why these are so precious and how these will impact on our world for the future years to come.
Well, here's what we know. If something persists, there's a reason for it. And, if something's been around for thousands of years and revered, there's a reason for it. And if basically it was reserved for the royal family, where you had 70-year-old emperors with 1,000 mistresses, considering their royal duty to pass on their DNA, and I can just let you figure out exactly what that means, and they realized that this mushroom helped that process, they were all for it. But as we go through time, why are there now thousands of PubMed studies? Why is there a PubMed study that says that the US Ganoderma market alone, reishi market alone, is $2.5 billion a year? Why is the global medicinal mushroom market $50 billion a year? Why did Paul Stamets, the global?
That's all. The most powerful people, they're the ones that get their hands on things first. But that's changing, right? Because we're not going to chop your head off, or your arm off for consuming what we have. In fact, we'll say thank you very much. When people in the East hear about this, they find it quite amusing, because they think, why would you put it in tea and coffee? And that might seem quite strange to people. But let me just share this with you, because I am able to share my screen. That's one of my Facebook pages there. But I often show this to people because this is the biggest medical database in the world, PubMed. Right? This is like for doctors, by doctors. And Ganoderma is the Western name, which means shiny skin. And you can see since the year 1998 that the amount of studies, look, it's especially in the last few years. And even if you type in COVID, I dare say that word, but there's already been 3 studies done on COVID, on Ganoderma. So, and the reason for this is, pharmaceutical companies they're clever. They want to make the next blockbuster drug. There's 634 on cancer. That's why Dr. Bob encouraged my wife to consume it. And my wife, who had the most deadliest form of cancer, which is a brain tumor, has consumed this every single day for the last 9 years, 10 years, 11 years. But what's fascinating is that you can bet that all of these studies haven't used organic Ganoderma. They probably haven't used the whole thing, just parts of it. And it's not even the most potent part. The most potent part is when the mushroom germinates. So nature's powerful. The pharmaceutical companies are powerful as well. They want to make the next blockbuster drug for pennies and sell it for millions, so they can make a lot of money. But that's just the way it is. Yeah, we have this in tea. We have it in coffee. I shared it with someone who shared it with someone else who shared it with Eric. And Eric hasn't looked back. Dr. Bob isn't back. He's back, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Bob is back in the house. We got your back, Dr. Bob.
You always have my back, and I love that about you. While we went pharmaceutical for a minute, there were plenty of experts saying, the drug companies are in trouble. They're in big trouble because the people are finding out that their drugs don't work. They're toxic. They're not very necessary. And if people take care of themselves, and there was a big think tank, what are we going to do? 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 And now that they've analyzed the data, here's what they call it, a public health emergency of international concern, which, by the way, the acronym PH emergency, EIC, if you pronounce that, it's pronounced as fake. And what's the death rate of the virus? It's 0.014%. 14 in 10,000 people will die from it. And that's even with suppression of effective therapies. So I want you to just be skeptical and really look into everything. And you know what? Be very zealous about everything you put in your body, mind, and spirit. That's what Augmendino would say. And when you do that, like our world champions have, you come to realize that all areas of your life, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, social, financial, impactful, can get better.
And what have you noticed from someone who treats people from all walks of life, from the best of the best to people who really are not in a particularly good way? What have you noticed? In fact, before you just answer that question, I just want to, can we just give everyone a big shout of all of you that have joined us here this evening? I mean, it's the 1st of January and all of you have decided to be with us. Can we all just turn our cameras on and just give a big wave? I can see Thomas Brosnan is in the house, ladies and gentlemen. I can see Ray Sylvester is in the house. I can see Michelle. I can see, well, look, Happy New Year. I can see Matt and Georgia. Who else can I see? I can see loads of you. Camilla.
Hey, Bernie's in the house as well, Pete.
Bernie who?
Bernie Chua.
Come on. Bernie Chua's in the house?
No, I'm kidding. It says Bernie. I was just trying to add some humor.
So
All
Bernie,
right.
we wish. Bernie
right.
Chua is the man who really came up with the idea of putting this incredible superfood in the tea and coffee. I thank him every day. I've got a big picture of him, which I look every day. That's not a picture of him, but there you go. Should we, Eric, should we talk about any predictions that people have got for this coming year, or answer any questions, or perhaps hear from people that maybe have some? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Let me let Dr. Bob answer the question. Excuse me. Dr. Bob, let's just go back to you for those of us that are maybe new here. Can you just tell me from your perspective what you've seen this do for people? Oh, there you go. He was about to answer the question. That's why he was showing us the foot. I'm so sorry. I will now be quiet.
Well, there's this term that's really kind of taking over called functional medicine. And what does functional medicine attempt to do? Restore function. And here's what my great mentors told me. Whenever there's a problem in any organ system of the body, any tissue, there are 3 distinct zones of cells. There are cells that are dead. Well, there's nothing we can do about that. There are cells that are fine. There's nothing we need to do about that. In between are cells that are functional but not functioning. This foot was given a death sentence, like your wife was given a death sentence. Although this foot, they were going to hasten the process. They were going to amputate it. They were going to cut it off right there, never addressing the cause. So, I tell people bodies respond to frequency, duration, intensity, quality, and timing of stimuli. So we did things every waking hour, and look at that foot 2 weeks later, then look at it 17 months later. And the person that recommended the surgery actually ran into this patient in the grocery store, and he looked at her and he said, "What are you doing walking?" She said, "My problem went away. My blood sugar is better than it's been in the last 40 years. I'm only taking just the smallest dose of insulin that I've ever taken and no other drugs." And what path was she on here? A path of death and destruction. She probably wasn't going to live another decade, but instead she's looking forward to another 5 excellent decades. So what have I seen? If you're sent home to die, maybe you can beat this. And we've seen plenty of people do it, like Hannah and like this foot of Maureen's. If you're set to thrive, whatever that means, it might be Tyson Gay, it might be Curtis, it might be Camila, well, then okay, whatever's going on, we can make that happen. And I see that she raised her hand, so I'm thinking she wants to share. So go for it.
Hi guys, nice to see you. Happy New Year from Sweden. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you, Dr. Bob, for last year. I am back in myself in a really amazing way. And I did a little experiment after I had this stress reset with you. And I just wanted to tell about, I have had a really bumpy journey the last 10 years. I trusted surgeons and did a gastric bypass, and that is kind of the worst decision I made in my entire life. But anyway, I got really sick about a year after I had done the surgery, because I lost 135 kilos in 18 months, and that was kind of destroying my body. I was so malnutritioned, and I had ileus and a lot of things, 2 huge surgeries in 2 weeks. And they put in a lot of glucose in my blood, so I actually had some brain injury after that, and I have struggled ever since. But what I did last summer, I have been really kind to myself. I don't eat sugar, I don't eat gluten. I am taking good care of myself, but the last 2 years have been difficult, and last summer, summer 21, I was kind of totally down. I couldn't be awake in the evenings, and I couldn't even I couldn't run my computer and do live streams because my brain couldn't cope with that. And actually, my friend Andy Shank visited me, and we talked over a cup of coffee. He brought the coffee, of course. And day after, he came with the spores, and he said, you need to eat these. And I'm going to connect you with a really good nutritional doctor in Texas, in Houston, Texas. And I said, yeah, please do, because it feels like I'm like slowly dying, like it's slow motion dying or something like that. I was really tired. So I met with Dr. Bob. We really connected, and I am so grateful for that. And he told me to take the spores together with melatonin and L-theanine, and so I did. And I actually was really hesitating, because you told me, Dr. Bob, that I should take 1 spore every waking hour, two spores every waking hour. And I just oh my God, he wants to sell capsules. and then I just told myself, you just please be quiet, listen to what he says, and just do it. Just do it. And I did. And after 10 days, after 7 days, I felt like, I feel calm in a way that I didn't, that I never have been inside. You know, when you are so malnutrition, it's like your whole biochemistry system is like shaking. And I felt calm, and it went on 3 days more, and after 3 days I actually felt like it's very quiet. And then I have some severe problems with tinnitus, and that went away almost. So I was really like, what is it in these capsules? And actually I have tried to stop with them for 5 days, just to see how I become. And after 5 days, I felt really low, and it's like everything starts going in slow motion again. So I know that there is something in this that my brain needs to function well. And if you know a little bit about gastric bypass, you cut a lot in your stomach, and I have made like 7 surgeries in 6 years. So when you cut everything, you also destroy the vagus nerve, and a lot of things is going to be really bad with your gut health, and the gut is connected to the brain and so forth. So everything is kind of, that's the worst thing you can do to your system. And that is also why I'm now gonna do my effort around this. I have helped people that has done the surgery because I've spoken of about this publicly and my brain injury and all of that in Sweden and in media and social media. So now I have more and more friends that has done gastric bypass that is asking, what am I taking? And I'm going to educate them on how I did it. And I'm also going to do a really easy way for them to make the stress reset, because I think it's so important that I share this to others because I'm so grateful. I have a better quality of life. I will never be like super duper fine. I don't believe that could happen because I have cut the system crazy. I have destroyed the system, but I can make my life much better. And now I think it's kind of, I would like to know, and I think other people also would like to know, Dr. Bob, what exactly do you think it is in this that makes me, makes my brain work better? Can you please enlighten me on that, because that is something I would like to carry on to the other persons that I recommend the sports to.
Sure. Here's a simple answer. It has all the fabulous 50, all the vitamins, minerals, amino acids, proteins, carbohydrates, fat, fiber, and water in doses that make a difference to human health. It has 430 unique molecules currently identified, 79 of which are antimicrobial. It increases serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine, and GABA. It induces brain stem cells. It improves brain circulation. So here's what it is. It's the top superfood, the perfect nutrition on the planet. And what you notice is that it works really well for you, but there's a lot of things I wanted to say about that. Sometimes people say, well, wait a minute, what do you want me to do? I want you to do what works. And remember, the most expensive therapy is the one that doesn't work. And I like to go to Red Adair with that one. If you think hiring an expert is expensive, try hiring an amateur. So this guy was an oil field firefighter. And when there's a $1 million+ burning up every day and you hire someone that doesn't know what they're doing, you might lose tens of millions before you wake up. And I'd rather start at the top with what works. And that's the recommendation that I make for you. And those are the recommendations I make for all my patients. And Ganoderma is part of every single protocol. So what is it? It's Ganoderma. That's what it is. 4,000 years of human use, no known toxicity, no known drug interaction. And you're an extreme case. Like you said, a gastric bypass, however long ago, you've suffered malabsorption for 7 years, so you're not going to fix it in 10 days. I just did a consult with an elite basketball player who has NBA written all over him, plays for an elite university. I don't want to give away any, I don't have any permission to share data, but he had such a heart problem that he could no longer play, such an irregular heartbeat. We put him on a program customized to him. Within 10 days, he had 10 days of being deconditioned, and that makes a difference at that level of athletics. No problems whatsoever wearing a very sophisticated heart rate monitor where he could barely exert before. So we gave him what he needed. We gave you what you needed. And I'm kind of eager to hear from Bernie, and which Bernie is that? That could be really quite interesting. So thank you, Camila, for sharing. Bernie, can you unmute? Do you know how that works? Could be Bernie Chua. I don't know. Well, all right. We'll go back to our Coenetic friend or Irish Superman or whichever.
I was just going to thank you so much. It was amazing to hear from you, Camilla. Thank you for being so honest and open. And
Can I just ask one question to Dr. Bob?
The answer is love, but go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to know about the grapeseed capsules and the spores together. Is that some? Can you tell me about that, because I'm not so sure?
Well, the magic of synergy is 1 + 1 is greater than 2. And that's what they found. You get a greater benefit from both together than you do in any individual. And they're both proven safe, effective, highest quality. Give it a shot. See what you see. We've got some practitioners that are madly in love with the grapeseed for the benefits that it adds.
Thank you so much. I mean, we have so many stories. Why don't we just share a little bit about our goals, for this business for this year? I'd love to know, what plans do people have? I know we've got some guests here this evening. Yeah, I'd just love to know, Dr. Bob, what about you? To start off with you, what's your goals? I mean, what's the impact that this business has had?
Well, Pete, over 1 million doses per month, that pays quite handsomely in return. So Curtis shared his national champion ring that looks like a Super Bowl ring. I shared my Super Bowl ring, which the interesting thing about my ring, my brother-in-law has a Super Bowl ring. He got it as chief financial officer. And I said, look, this ring gets bigger and better and literally impacts more than 1 million doses of health every month and growing. But Pete, what I like to do based on my mentors is set a process goal. And my process goal is very simple. There will never be a day that passes this year, 2022, or any year after that, where I don't dedicate 30 pure, rock solid minutes to sharing in a way that I believe empowers people. And I say believe because my plan is to get better every single day. Now, my target is 90 minutes. And I'll go to Robin Sharma. I'm listening to his latest audiobook, and it's absolutely phenomenal. But he's got what he calls his 90-91 rule. And he says, if you will spend the first 90 minutes for 90 straight days focused on your one thing, there's a high probability that you will accomplish more than by far the average person will in an entire year. And he says probably a lot more. So my non-negotiable 30 minutes, I'll get that in. 90 minutes is my target. I got my 90 minutes in today. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to go from 1 million to 1 million plus. And when I set a progress goal, a process goal, I always win. And here's what I like, Pete. I like to win. And, I'm shooting for the stars and, I might miss, but I might land on the moon. And here's what we know. Very few people get there. So, and when I get there, as JP Morgan said, go reach your next destination. When you can get there, you can see further. And I'll be able to see further with each passing day.
Well, it's going to be an epic year. We run these calls every Saturday night at this time and every Tuesday at the same time as this time. And we also do rooms on Clubhouse. I don't know how many of you use the social media app Clubhouse. I mean, there's a number of people in this room who I have literally shared product with, and literally from having shared the product, I didn't have to talk. I can talk, believe you me. I get paid a lot of money to talk, but I can't talk how good this is to people. I just have to let the product do the talking. And, we're going to be here. And all you have to do really is, if you can consume our products, which is great, you can share these products with people. You can invite them to come and find out more. But we're just excited for 2022. There's never been a better year to share something like this with people. The world is changing and it's continuing to change. And I think we need to decide, who do we want to be on the back of all of this shenanigans that's going on. Eric, I don't know if you have something else that you want to say, or if anyone has any questions they want to ask. Eric?
Sure. Yeah, I would love to encourage people to go out there this year and build a stronger digital version of themselves, because the world has changed to such a degree that I don't believe it will ever go back. So put some time into that this year. Really put some time into what are the things that make you uniquely you. Focus on your passions, focus on what value you bring to the world, and expect to not get paid at the start. Expect to show up because it means something to you. Come on these calls, invite people to these calls, because they're not going to get invited to by themselves, because you simply don't know who's going to come onto a call like this and listen to a story or see a piece of information and just bang, it's going to change their life. So I would encourage everyone to, just get used to showing up. Get used to showing up on your social media. Get skilled at sharing your story, and do so with a smile on your face and with solid energy. And have a goal in mind that, like Dr. Bob said, sometimes people set goals that are unrealistic. But if you set an activity goal and you say, okay, I'm going to grow this business. I'm going to do an hour a day or 2 hours a day, concentrated time of connecting with people who you value and who you think will resonate with your message, and don't try and get everyone. Not everyone is for your message. Not everyone's for you. You're not for everyone either. We're not that good. We can at best attract people who are like us and then build upon that and build our skill set. But meet yourself where you are, and have that tough love conversation with yourself to say, I'm getting better every day. Progress is my goal. And I'm excited to share this one cup at a time, one post at a time, and one day at a time. So I'm excited for this year. I'm going to take things to a whole other level. I'm going to say less and do more. So watch the space. But I intend on building an absolute Reishi-driven army this year, using social media as a positive platform for change and inspiration. So that's it for me, guys. And I wish the same for you guys.
Guys, make sure you follow Eric in whatever way you can, especially if you want to learn about how to use social media well. Him and his amazing wife, Issa, they're great examples. I would really look at what they're doing specifically on Instagram. On the 10th of January at 7 p.m. GMT, I'm doing a goal setting masterclass. And I don't mind telling you, I'm out there. I'm a future self scientist. Everything I do is about the science of future self thinking. And there's no point in setting goals, like I said right at the beginning, if those goals aren't attached to the person who's already achieved them. Again, we've mentioned Curtis this evening. If Curtis is one of the 2% of people, if he came to work with me, he would already know who he wants to be. But with most of the world champion athletes I've ever worked with, when they come to work with me, they don't know really who the person is that has won the gold medal. They don't know that person. And unless they know that person, it's very unlikely that it's going to happen. And that's why the best goal you can set is the goal of the person that you're becoming and building that relationship. I promise you, if you come to this event, it's free. You can download the worksheet. It's a 75-minute process. I know that's a long time, but in the space of a year, it's not really that long. We have an amazing opportunity this year to work with Dr. Bob and all of us, and to build, when we come on these calls, that there's hundreds of people coming who want to be a part of something, people who are improving their health, improving their income, improving their well-being. And what a great way to start the year. Anyone have any questions? Anyone want to speak before we close the room down? I know Mr. Zaf Khan is here. He's been very quiet there, but I know he's there, out there in South Africa. I don't know if anyone wants to speak. Feel free just to unmute yourself and speak.
Hey,
Sharon, who's that?
I just say it's Claudio from Canada. Dr. Bob put a recommendation out probably about a week or two ago on the One Thing. It's a book, an audiobook. So many gold nuggets on there. We all have different many areas actually that we want to grow in. You need to pick one area, focus on it, do it one at a time. And you know what? Once you get good at one thing, pick another area. And it just, if you guys purchase that audiobook and you get no nuggets out of it, I will actually pay for that book I will pay and gift it to you. I really putting it out there. It's a great book to get you motivated for 2022.
Thank you. Thank you. Sharon, you unmuted yourself. Sharon Cook.
Yeah, sorry. Hi, thank you for this evening. I've missed a few of these, so that's why I wanted to get back on today to get motivated again for the new year. But I have messaged you privately, Pete, so you can just ignore that now. I'm kind of like, I've seen results myself and I'm recommending to people, but I feel like I keep hitting stumbling blocks with people, maybe not, or maybe I feel like I'm not knowledgeable enough to explain the science behind stuff. I think the more of these Zooms that I come on, the more information I'm absorbing each time. So it's good that some of it's repetitive. But I feel like I really want to go out there, like actually push it from a business point of view. But I'm not really sure where to go next with it, like who to approach, or because at the moment, up till now, I've just kind of left it by chance. Like if I bump into somebody and they're like, oh, how are you doing? Because that people, obviously, I had a big operation a year ago and then I can use that to come into the conversation. Oh, where have I gone? Disappeared, sorry.
You're there.
And I can use that to come into the conversation. But yeah, I feel like I really want to run with this, but I don't know how
Pete,
to
I'm going
run.
to jump in on that one.
Yeah, please.
I'm going to jump in on that one. So one, join Pete's Kickstart program. Easy enough, every day. And I'm a huge fan of mentors, and Pete's absolutely one of the best in the history of the game, but I'm also a big fan of consciousness and language. So when I push, people push back. When I lead, people follow. When you're trying to explain the science, you've already disrupted one of the magic rules of business, and that is keep it simple. I don't know what you want to know about the science, but your body will tell you all you need to know. So drink it for a week. Let's see what happens. And by the way, I'll sweeten the deal. If you're not 100% satisfied with how it tastes and how it makes you feel, I'll give you every penny back. So buy a box and let's see where it goes and drink it exclusively. Now that's what's built a multi-million-dollar business and has created every testimonial that you heard as part of this, because that's our strategy. Now, have I violated my own rule? When people ask me to go on the science, could I go on a binge on science for about a dozen hours and then take a breath and, go for another dozen? Sure, because there's way more science than that. But the better answer is, well, whatever you want to know, you're going to find out by consuming it. So figure it out. You want to dig into PubMed, but let your body do the talking. And we have people that are phenomenal HIV testimonials, cancer testimonials, preventing amputation, preventing death testimonials, guy that's going to have a stellar NBA career when he didn't even know he'd play another college game testimonials, someone with severe gastric issues, gastric bypass, severe malnutrition, resolving to a high degree in 10 days kind of issues. And they're all there. So go into the Miracle of Organo group, binge on people's stories because they're epic, and connect to Pete Cohen. Listen,
Sharon, sorry, go on.
Oh, you've led world championships, or people that didn't have a world championship to world champion. Let's pick a starting block, and that's with Pete, and then he'll help you process that through. He's phenomenal at it.
Thank you. Sharon, this is a business, right? And you could speak to, Louise, you could speak to Matt. You could see how they started off. It was challenging, right? Because it's a slightly different business model, and it takes time. But you definitely want to expose people to this. And Dr. Bob was kind of hinting or sharing how to expose. I mean, this is an exposure, right? So what I would suggest to you is that come to all the calls that we do, if you can, on a Tuesday night and a Saturday, but also on a Tuesday after that exposure, we do a little bit of group training. Everyone comes together. Dr. Bob, what's the best book? Would you still reckon, if someone wanted to read or listen to something, would you still reckon Eric Worre's book?
Well, it depends on who's the person, and what's so fascinating is Eric Worre's, the 7 skills to become network marketing professionals. It's an easy read. You finish it in 2 hours and there's pure wisdom in there. But the book was written a decade ago and it's evolved. And so, what's the best book? The best book might be for a different book for a different person. Probably my favorite all time for network marketing is Art Williams, How to Beat Talent, Brains, Beauty, and Education. That's basically the title. But here's a guy that became a billionaire. That's what the capital B is in, billionaire, in network marketing. And he was a phenomenal coach. That's what he started out, a broke high school coach that built an empire selling life insurance door to door in the network marketing model. And here's what he said about life insurance. It's much easier to sell it to someone that doesn't want it than to find someone who actually does want it. Now, that's certainly not true about coffee. Are you kidding me? 2.25 billion cups a day, 2 patented competitive advantages. plenty of people feel a difference, like Ulysses in a single cup, or like Manny Pacquiao in a single cup, or like Irish Superman in a single cup. You know, there's plenty of people that feel that level of difference, but get the product to them. But I really like Art Williams. And, you know, Eric Worre's, that's the Bible. It's certainly one of my top 5. You want a real nuts and bolts book, Brian Carruthers, Building the Empire. You know, Now You Know is another one. And I'll think of the author's name in just a moment. But this guy, Ryan Chamberlain, built an absolute fortune. And he says there's words you shouldn't use, you know, like certainly don't use the word meeting. Who the heck wants to go to a meeting, you know? Or, you know, when people start talking about an opportunity, hey, raise your hand if this was the first opportunity you were ever asked to look at. And people are sick and tired of opportunities. I've got something magnificent I want to share with you. Just that simple. I want to introduce you to some of my profoundly healthy, happy, successful friends that are helping me. I think they can help you too. Well, what are they going to tell you? Well, I don't know, maybe what they told world champions, you know, that got them another world championship. I don't know, but just join us. It's just that simple. Keep it simple. Give them the, you know, what they say is the appetizer, right? Or appetizer. Don't give them the main course.
Okay. I think we're done, guys. Thank you so much for everyone being here tonight. We really appreciate you all. Stay in touch, stay connected. But most importantly, thank you so much, Dr. Bob. We
Thank
really
you all.
appreciate you.
Happy, beautiful 2022 and beyond. And Pete, I was going to say, you make Elon Musk look small. He only wants to go to Mars. You want to master the universe. So
Yeah.
I love and appreciate it, my friend. Adios for now.
Ciao, guys. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank
Bob.
you, guys.